No Flaws by RedRix. Rimuru Pav. Sir Rimuru, we have an emergency. Several hundred winged horses are headed for the direction of town. Soe sent me a cold, to-the-point message via thought communication. Shion, it's an emergency. I'll call for Benimaru, Diablo and Hakuro, so get Rigard to alert the townspeople for me. Right. She lowered me down, then briskly ran off. I ran down the situation with the Onas, then turned my attention to the sky, turning my sense all the way up. It let me detect something coming from the Dwarven Kingdom. A force of around 500 mounted, flying knights. Slightly higher than rank A. Shion came back with Shuna, with Benimaru, Diablo and Hakuro arriving simultaneously. Soe had somehow appeared behind me, too. Your orders, Sir Rimuru? My orders? Well, I kinda have an idea on who they are and what they want, so I would like to avoid fighting and talk things out with them. Yes, sir. They said in unison. If they are hostile, then we just have to blow them away. Shion optimistically shouted, and Diablo also complimented on this. Well, what happens, happens. If this turns into a fight, our first priority is evacuating our residents. We'll buy the time to make that happen, I said. You got it. And indeed, this could be an easy win once we're in the thick of it. I'll handle the magical support, heh heh heh. My longsword is seeking blood. Kufufufu. I am only here to serve you, Lord Rimuru. Good to see the usual gang was in on it. Wait a second. I heard someone mutter in the group. Turning toward the voice, I saw Kaijin lost in thought. What is it, Kaijin? Well, if these are flying knights, I've heard rumors about a top-secret force under the direct control of the Dwarven King. Just rumors, but... Oh, those are not just rumors, they're true, and that same force is currently heading this way. Hear this, Kaijin grimaced. The winged horses they fly are normally C-ranked magical beasts. Dwargen's been breeding them for their flight skills. You won't find too many A-ones in nature. I guess the rumors were true, huh? What Kaijin said seemed to make sense. Whatever could upgrade those creatures so dramatically must have been kept under tight secrecy. Even an ex-officer would have only heard half-told rumors. King Gazel almost never leaves the royal palace these days, but he was lauded as a hero in his glory years. If he thought it necessary, it wouldn't be outside the realm of possibility for him to personally lead a force like this. Kaijin commented. Hearing this, I remember something. Hey, Rigard, can I ask you a question? Yes, my lord? I told Kabul and his party to spread some rumors around their fellow adventurers, but did we ever tell them that it's over? Ah. Oh, man, I forgot. Better send a message to him. I apologize for this oversight, Sir Rimuru. It wasn't just Rigard's fault. I forgot, too, so we were even, pretty much. A herd of winged horses was flying above town. They took sidelong glances at us as we watched them, looping around the city airspace a few times before landing in an open field just beyond its borders. We had some open space in town, too. The areas where we planned to build most of our central facilities, but I suppose they didn't immediately touch down in the city out of politeness. Leaving the evacuation efforts to Hakuro, Kurobe, and Gobta, I headed out of town to greet them. Accompanying me was Rigard, who insisted that negotiations with the outside world were in his jurisdiction. Obviously, Kaijin and the three dwarves were with me, too. The knights were lined up in neat rows in the field beyond the city. In front was one whose force of presence dominated over all of them. He was flanked by 4 bodyguards, each obviously several times stronger than the rest of the force. If you ever bumped into these guys on the road, running was your best bet at survival, for sure. Well, Your Majesty. It has been a long time, and quite an impressive showing, as well. May I ask what brings you here today? Kaijin stepped forward and took a knee before Gazel. A pleasure to see you again, Kaijin, and you as well, Slime. Do you remember me? In a flash, Benimaru's smile vanished and he had a steady hand on his sword, apparently not a fan of the king calling me just Slime. Soe, on the other hand, kept it supremely cool. The faint smile on his face told us all how he felt. He was pissed. He normally had no expression at all, but get him mad, and he'd smile back at you. Diablo just stood behind me with his ominous smile plastered in his face. Creepy. It was pretty funny how the only way to make Diablo smile was to basically bait him into killing you. Meanwhile, the aura I felt from Shuna and Shion was nothing to sniff at. Kaijin, himself, was deeply disturbed by the king's greeting. My liege?" he stammered, eyes ready to pop out of their sockets. "Ha ha ha ha." The king boomed. "I see your head is unbending as always, Kaijin. Can you not see? I have come here strictly as a private citizen. At least, on paper. Otherwise, I hardly would be allowed out of my own bedchamber." Kaijin, still flustered, exchanged looks with his king and me. Realizing that nobody on the scene had any further comment, he took that to mean Gazel was telling the truth. It was hard for him to swallow. I took that moment to introduce myself. "Right. Well, lemme introduce myself first. My name is Rimuru. You're right in a way about me, at least looking like a slime, but I am not really a slime, just someone who looks like a slime because I can morph into one because it's comfortable, and I'd prefer if you didn't call me that. I mean, I'm kind of the leader of the Great Forest of Jura Alliance, so you could say things have changed a bit since last time." I took this moment to turn into my human shape. "This is probably easier for you to talk to. AN looks something like this right now. The pic is not owned by me." Hearing this introduction, I am sure that at least some of the knight's sweat dropped, and Benimaru, Shuna, Shion, Soe, the dwarves and the hobgob looked surprised but didn't ask anything. It transformed? A magic born, and such a high level one. I sense magical force but no casting of magic itself. A skill-based status transformation, I would say. I sense no sudden burst of magicules, so it is likely as it said, simply a change of appearance, not of nature. But this could change its method of battle. At the least, being able to wield equipment like our own could boost its own offensive and defensive powers. Sounds like trouble. I haven't seen a rare variant like this in quite a while, and the monsters behind it are rather strange in themselves. Said Granny Jane. "Those, I can identify. They're Onas, a race practically worshipped as local gods rivaling sub-demon lord class. The one directly behind him is an archdemon, at least an old one at that." "They are? That's the evolved form of an ogre, is it not? Should we not dispatch them before they grow too strong to handle? And old demon too? You think it'd go that smoothly? They're all sub-demon lord level at least. We might not win if it comes to that. I hate to sound timid, but yes, best not underestimate them." The king looked on silently, but his personal companions seemed unnerved. They even guessed what Benimaru and his kin were along with Diablo. Well, you couldn't have been more wrong about his race. Comparing an archdemon to a demon god. Seriously. Silence. The king suddenly bellowed, never taking his eyes off me. "Enough of this racket. This slime and I are speaking right now. Excuse me, Rimuru, I mean. I will evaluate him for myself, and I would appreciate it if all of you held your tongues in the meantime." It was a pure show of force, and it stunned them all into silence. "Yeah, sorry if I scared you all. I just transformed because I thought this be more natural for you. Just like that lady said, this is the work of my skill, universal shapeshift, and this is my human form. I will be the judge of that. I would hardly believe the words of someone unless I was reasonably sure they were a friend, or foe. True enough. We would just have to land into the friendly category once more. Well, I ventured. You can doubt me all you want, but we can't really sustain a conversation that way, can we? No need to worry. Words are not what I need to judge your character. Instead, I will use my sword to divine your true nature. If you insist on such ribald boasting, calling yourself the leader of this forest, it may be about time to show you your place. If that sword of yours isn't mere decoration, I ask you to accept my request." With that, he handed the halberd he carried in his hands to an attending knight on his side. "Why, your majesty, surely. What faster way to settle this than with a man-to-man duel?" The king laughed. Judging by the shocked looks on the knights and Gazel's companions, their monarch was seriously looking for a fight. I had no reason to turn him down. In all honesty, I would do anything to prevent a fight, but if it comes down to a fight, I will never back down. "I accept the request, and I'll make you regret calling me a boaster," I said, looking King Gazel in the eye. The crowd had already formed a ring, with us facing each other down in the middle. "Regarding the rules, if you can block a single string of my attacks, you may call yourself the victor. Not that it has to be said, but you are free to attack me at any time, too. But remember, I am Gazel Dwargo, master of the sword, and my blade shall not be taken lightly. He took his weapon in hand and aimed it in front of his eyes. It held a single edge, with a bit of a curve to it, and pretty patterns were etched up and down its length. It resembled a samurai's sword but had its own unique design. Certainly, a very well-made weapon for the master of the sword to carry. Just when I was preparing to draw my own blade, a clear voice penetrated the ring, ruining the dramatic unsheathing of the one and only Genesis-class sword in the world. Allow me to watch over the match. As it did, I felt the presence of 3 more among us, hearts pure and bereft of evil. One had spoken. Trainee, a dryad I was familiar with. As always, she had a knack for appearing and disappearing whenever it suited her. The other 2 being her younger sisters. Dryads! Exclaimed Granny Jane, who tried scanning us earlier. I couldn't blame her surprise. Anyone would be alarmed at a monster teleporting in from out of nowhere. Trainee smiled as she gave both of us a quick glance. Dwarven King, you are being terribly arrogant to our forest leader. Calling Sir Rimuru a boaster tells me you are willing to make every denizen of this wood your enemy. Is this right? However, if Sir Rimuru has accepted this challenge, it is my role as his subject to allow it. I will close my eyes to it this time. But relent on your promise, and do not expect mercy from us. She was willing to accept no back talk against this. My companions nodded at one another. It was like Trainee said what they all were thinking. The dwarves, on the other hand, didn't look well at all. The loftiest presence in the forest, siding with a single force? One whispered. They are as powerful as high-level elementals, and 3 of them. Ha, ah ha 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 ha. So, leader of the forest, was no boast, after all. I apologize for branding you a liar, Rimuru, and I think I have a vague understanding of the situation here. But I still seek to gauge your true nature, and if we have a referee for this contest, all that remains is to cross swords. Gazel seemed completely unmoved. He was indeed worthy of being called a heroic king. Yeah, you're right. We'll have a quick match, and then we can talk about what has brought you here. There was no longer a peep from our audience. Trainee, face tensed, stood between the 2 of us as we confronted each other. The match was on. Begin, came the dryad's shrill voice over the still field. And with that, Gazel and I instantly took action. The match was over in an instant. Gazel was strong in his own right, no doubt about that, but the problem is that I am the strongest. Gazel's blade was cleanly cut in 2 without any sound. Heh 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 heh. Ah ha 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 ha. You've completely defeated me, Gazel bellowed for some reason. Why yeah. So, if your weapon is destroyed, does that mean I win? It certainly does. You don't appear to be at all evil to me, he said with another bellowing laugh. This fight is over. The winner is Rimuru Tempest. With Trainee's official notice, my victory was complete. Trainee's voice was immediately followed by a chorus of cheers from the monsters assembled in the field. The dwarves, meanwhile, were baffled about the result. He broke the king's very sword. Ridiculous. It's simply not possible. And so on. Silence, Dolph shouted. Have you no shame, my fellows? How arrogant for anyone to accuse His Majesty of relenting on any foe. Are you saying you could follow his movements with your eyes, when none of us even could? He's right, Vaughn commented. Gazel did not relent. The master of the sword fully deserves his title. This was no duel to the death. It was focused squarely upon gauging each competitor's true nature. Do not forget. We are not here to create enemies. How nice of them to plead my case for me. The other dwarves scowled at this dressing down. Forgive our impropriety, they said to Gazel and me. They simply didn't want to admit that their beloved king lost. The apologies sounded sincere enough, so I accepted them. Besides, I could understand their thoughts. Well done, though, you even sliced that sword so easily. Well, I have a few millenniums of experience using different kinds of weapons, and for all that time this sword was right with me, so it has become one of the best blade, if not the best blade ever, and that was one of the reasons I was able to cut your sword so easily, I explained. Can I see your sword? Gazel asked. Yeah, you can, but there is a problem with that. What is it? Well, see it for yourself. With that I handed him my sword. As soon as he held the weapon just came crashing towards the ground. Well, this is the problem. If anyone else except me tries to wield it, it will just reject that wielder, and this exact scenario happens even without that. It's really heavy, like really heavy. Kinda like Thor's hammer and its weight. I would put it around a planet since the Veldanava sword weight was equivalent to a star, and this is also a Genesis class sword, but it's not as strong as the Veldanava sword. That's okay and all, but can you take it back? It's crushing my hands, Gazel said, on the verge of shouting. I quickly took back the sword and gave him full potion on his wounds. Ho ho ho. Well performed, Sir Rimuru. Hakuro, who was aiding the town's evacuation, chose that moment to sidle up next to me. The women and children have been directed to safety. I left the rest to Gobta and came here, but what a sight awaited me. If I may, Gazel said, suddenly humble. Are you the sword ogre? Ho. The child from way back when, is it? I hardly even recognized you. Well, forgive me for being so rude, Your Majesty. I was wondering what kind of stalwart warrior could use such moves. How splendid to see you have grown to be a better swordsman than I. It is an honor to hear such words, Sword Ogre. 300 years, is it? Since I found you as a child, lost in the forest, and began teaching you the way of the sword on a whim. A fond memory, nowadays. And now you are the Dwarven King? Talk about never knowing who you'll run into from your past. We decided to talk in more detail elsewhere. In the center of town, we had a dorm full of rooms for everyone who held central posts related to keeping things running. There was a government building of sorts next to it filled with offices and meeting halls, and we all went inside to hold a little catch-up meeting. The mission of the dwarves was to investigate the mystery team of monsters that defeated the Orc Lord, in other words, us. As they put it, they needed to see if we were friend or foe. The Dryads were known to be a kind and fair race, and the dwarves believed they would never lend a hand to anyone with evil intentions. If they liked us, then they didn't even need that duel to know we were okay. Once the dwarves gave their story, I gave ours. From the first rumblings of the Orc Lord to the Jura alliance we forged. I did mention how the Orc Lord had evolved into a full-fledged demon lord. It's all solved now anyways. Somewhere along the line, the meeting transformed into a sort of banquet. The tension between us dissipated as we spoke. It was dangerous for the Pegasus Knights to fly in the dark, so we would be hosting them tonight. We had them all kick back in our public assembly grounds. Staying in regular contact with their home kingdom was no problem, they told me, so I thought I'd build a little amity and bust out some of the wine we were developing. Then the good times started rolling. Gazel himself is reminiscing about the old days with Hakuro. Well, you may call me Hakuro the Oni now. I have taken on the post of instructor for the citizens of this town. This comment of Hakuro's made the good king promptly request his tutelage as well. His friends had to talk him out of it. Just as the feast got into full swing, Gazel suddenly turned to me, his expression grave. Rimuru, I want to ask you something. Sure, anything you need. Do you want to forge a covenant with me? I ask you this as king. If you are the leader of this forest, that would put us in equal position, and if you've been able to hold this entire vast forest under a single government, I am sure you will be rewarded with riches and bounties that not even my kingdom can enjoy. We observed this city from the skies, and let me tell you, it is a beautiful one. That, and you have built great roads through the forest. I could only guess at the logistical and technical skills required to build them. They may yet be incomplete, but I can easily see this town becoming a vital trade center in due time. A vast new market, one that will take on great strategic importance. And when that happens, having another nation to back you would help in various ways, would it not? You sure? Because this is the same as admitting that we, this group of monsters, are a full-fledged nation. Of course. And since we may perhaps see this differently, let me say this. A covenant would be of great help to us, as well. This is no charity mission, Rimuru. We could both stand to benefit. He told me all this with a grin, then offered his terms, dead serious. These were as follows. 1. A non-aggression treaty with each other. 2. Assistance whenever one nation is endangered. 3. The building of a road to Dwargon, in exchange for their backing. 4. Guaranteed safety for dwarves in the forest of Jura. 5. Promises of technology sharing between us. There were a few other details, but those were the 5 main points. I would be glad to take this offer, I told him. Rigard, Benimaru, Diablo, Trainee and the others had no objections, willing to let me have the final say on it. As Trainee put it, none of the Dryads disagreed with naming me leader of our alliance, and none of the monsters had any innate aversion to interacting with humans or dwarves. Let's relay this to the kingdom. The king told Henrietta, the head of Gazel's undercover team. What do you call this nation anyway? He asked. To which I acted as if I was thinking for a bit, but I already had a name in mind. Either way, I said this to get the confirmations of the others. Well, I don't think we're really at the nation point yet. I mean, there's the alliance, but that's just a bunch of different races that accepted me as their leader, is all. I don't know if everyone in the forest is ready to accept that. I knew from the start that it sounded weak. Everyone in the room shot me down. If anyone refuses to recognize you as their lord, Sheehan declared, I promise I shall slay them where they stand. Well, Benimaru added, it's a monster's natural instinct to follow the power chain, but I think it's a little different with you, Sir Rimuru, at the core of it. You know? Nobody's being forced to follow you, and I don't think you'll find anyone against it, either. He. Right now, Sir Rimuru, you hold control over approximately 3/10 of the forest. The other advanced races have decided to watch you carefully for the time being. However, the middle levels among them have already expressed interest in aligning with you, and I am sure the lower level races will come flocking to this town for protection. We are united under a so-called alliance for now, but it is an alliance based on a common will, one that I believe will birth a full nation. One with you, Sir Rimuru, at the center. Even in these circumstances, the old survival of the fittest rule held true. All right, then, I already had a name in mind, so how about the Jura Tempest Federation, or Tempest for short? Then this town shall be named Rimuru, then. Diablo commented, and the others agreed wholeheartedly with both the names. This current covenant between the armed nation of Dwargon and the Jura Tempest Federation took the form of a pact between the two nations. It would take effect after representatives from each side applied their signatures. It would then be kept in safe, magical storage and announced to the world. And so the term Jura Tempest Federation appeared in the public record for the first time. Rimuru, POV, on a flying horse. The trip from Dwargon to the capital city of Rimuru took just 1 day. The dwarves were soon off, with Gazel promising to visit again soon. And he did. This time with a droopy vesture. Well, Rimuru, the king half shouted as he dismounted. Here I am, as promised. Didn't you just leave 2 days ago? Is his kingdom really going to be all right? I couldn't help but think about that. As I silently stewed over these doubts, Kaijin came running up to me. Your Majesty, he shouted, you didn't sneak out of the castle, did you? Peeved. Can you believe it? 100-man security detail, and not one noticed me escaping. Such ignoble slackers. It's right back to hard drilling for them when I return home. Well, I mean, they can't handle someone like you, my liege. Did you want to say something, Kaijin? No, Your Majesty, nothing. So what brings you here this time, Your Majesty? Kaijin asked. Well, simple, really. You recall how I exiled you both from Dwargon based on my own personal judgment, so that's why I had to come here. And you will recall how our covenant included the sharing of technological expertise. Well, I've brought along the perfect man for the job. And here comes Vester, kidnapped by his own king. King Gazel. Kaijin sounded like he was beside himself. Should I take this to mean you're fine with letting us take every piece of dwarven technology you have? Peeved. Let me give you this request, then. I want you to take this land we stand upon now and harness it to create technology like none seen before. You understand me? Your research should not rely on previous perspectives. You must work more freely than that, as you conceive new ideas. That is the whole reason why I have allowed the free exchange of technology between my nation and yours. Yea, I have some stuff that shouldn't even exist at this time, but it does. Better not bring that up and cause needless trouble. Hey, are you? Oops. Bet my covert force has caught up to me by now. I'll be on my way, then. Right as I was about to question him about him trying to read my mind, he skillfully diverted the topic and then he flew away. A very sudden arrival, and a very hurried exit. The man was like a living thunderstorm. Kaijin, are you sure your nation's safe with such a freewheeling man ruling it? Who can say? He's been ruling for centuries, so I imagine we'll be fine, but... Certainly, he was not so flighty when I served him in the palace. Well, I'm not one to speak, I suppose. As far as uncommon visitors go, one time, while exploring in the woods, I came across an insectoid, an insect-type monster. That was near death. It was maybe a foot and a half tall, kind of a cross between a stag beetle and one of those big fighting ones, and I just thought it looked so cool. There was a dead blade tiger next to it, a B-ranked monster, and imagining this small creature defeating such a formidable foe was remarkable to me. There was another insectoid behind it. It had attacked me so the other one could make its escape a foot tall and looked like a garden variety wasp. Of course this was the future Zegan and Apedo, so I did the obvious thing and gave them some of my slime cells and used processed magi steel to replace the missing parts of their exoskeletons. That plus a dose of healing potion fixed them right up. They seemed to get along with my flesh surprisingly well this time. I was worried that they would not be able to handle it, but Seal explained to me that they would be completely fine, albeit much stronger physically this time. I also gave them their names, with Seal adjusting the output of the energy. I was surprised to say the least that giving them names instantly formed a cocoon around them, letting them evolve into a humanoid form. Looks like it will be a while before I get my honey. Well, I put them into the treant's care for the time being for them to start collecting honey. At the moment, the forest's native races were most likely testing us, trying to see what this new force in Jura could do. That's why we were kind of obligated to puff out our chests a bit, so we could get everyone else to recognize us. We'll gradually roll that out, and slowly but surely, we'll make ourselves known. So in short, the city of Rimuru, in the heart of the Jura Tempest Federation, was doing a pretty roaring business. Less than Master the individual Milam Nava is heading for this place. Greater than. Oh crap, I completely forgot about her arrival. In an instant, I jumped off Xian's chest and teleported outside town. The instant I teleported, the magic force changed its aerial trajectory and landed right in front of me. The nearby trees had been uprooted and blown away, and there was a crater on the ground where it landed. A powerful will hid behind her blue eyes, and her platinum pink hair was done up in a pair of pigtails. She looked around 14 or 15, but there was no telling a magic-born's age from external appearances. Before I could say anything, she arrogantly puffed out her chest and declared, "Hello, hello. I am the Demon Lord Milam Nava. You look like someone really strong, so I wanted to come and say hi. That should absolutely not be your attitude when meeting with someone much stronger than you." Milam, POV. A few minutes before, Milam the Demon Lord had spotted the town below her. It was a pretty place with neatly organized rows of buildings, attractive trees lining the city roads. It was a town that seemed to exist in perfect harmony with nature, and protected by some sort of multi-layered barrier, and she could tell that several sub-Demon Lord level magic born, rated special A or higher, lived there. The biggest surprise of all, however, was that even the rank and file residents of town were at least low-level magic-born people as well. Their magic potential varied, but they were all creatures with intelligence, thinking for themselves and carrying out the work assigned to them. Nothing like these people existed in the forest of Jura before this point. Seeing such a settlement appear practically overnight would normally be unthinkable. They were all working together, regardless of their differences in strength. Milam couldn't even imagine what kind of leadership skills were required to make them all follow that. It excited her like Lil had recently, and she used her truth-revealing Dragon's Eye unique skill to gauge the abilities of people around town. Amazing, she admirably thought to herself. Some of them could go toe-to-toe with the newer demon lords such as Carillion, Frey and Clayman. Unbelievably, nearly every single resident of the town was a named monster. No way. Everybody here's got names. But the most surprising thing was there were two people who were unreadable with her Dragon's Eye. One was a black-haired individual, dressed in black, and another was a platinum blue-haired individual who teleported outside the town a few seconds ago. For the first time in several centuries, Milam felt a mixture of shock and excitement well forth from her heart as she remembered that there was only one other person who was unreadable before this. A certain conversation with a redhead demon lord came into her mind. Flashback. "Guy, did you grow stronger somehow?" questioned Milam. "Yay, and it's all thanks to a certain platinum blue-haired individual and his black-haired butler." "Wait, does that mean you took someone's help?" Ramirez shouted. After all, he was the type to not take anyone's help in his matters, being the prideful person he already is. "Yes, I accepted his offer, not to mention this person is far stronger than me." "Wah, what? You of all people actually admitting that someone is stronger than you?" "It's true, if you want to believe it or not depends on you entirely." After an awkward moment to silence, Guy spoke again. Well, he's a true dragon but not a complete one and a twin of Veldanava, and if he met you Milam, he would probably treat you like you were his own child. After that, guy had a lot of questions to answer for a few days straight. End of flashback. Milam laughed a little. She was happy. Good thing I dissuaded them all from coming here. Her unique skill, Dragon's Eye, allowed her to view the truth behind whatever she saw, something that worked even through Clayman's crystal spheres. It wasn't a complete picture, but it provided enough information to pique Milam's interest. The mysterious magic-born fighting Gelmud possessed enough power to place it far beyond merely high level. Caroline and Clayman may not have spotted it, but there was no pulling the wool over her Dragon's Eye. She also had a guess about who killed Gelmud, someone who then gained Gelmud's power for their own, letting them evolve up to pretty much one step away from Demon Lord status. Wait. Maybe not. The Orc Lord would have only been able to evolve into a Demon Lord level creature. This magic-born's already far beyond that. And now she saw that, just as she figured, it was only the mystery magic-born who survived. She scanned the town from the skies, satisfied with herself. Wait, when did they even build a town like this? There were people maintaining the roads, people carrying around the chopped-up wood to and fro, monsters going in and out of construction sites. They were plainly building their own city. The townspeople here are a far cry from those boring old fools. Referring to the dragon faithful. She wanted some new stimulus, something to fend off the boredom. That was the only reason she even came here in the first place. If Clayman or Caroline wanted more war power, she was willing to hand it over once she was bored. She'd tyrannize the young demon lords, watch them stew in their own juices, and once she was satisfied, she'd think up some new game to play. That was her original plan. But the mystery magic-born was much stronger than any of the demon lords had guessed. She was 100% sure that if it came down to fight she would lose. She once challenged Guy after him gaining power from a certain platinum blue-haired individual who looked exactly like the individual residing in this town. Anyways, after the fight began she was instantly knocked out. She was not able to see what was even going on and had lost. And Guy said that there is a person that can defeat him even after he gained this much power. That thought even terrified her to some extent. She knew that she was strong, really strong, but she was instantly defeated, and there is someone who could defeat the person who she lost to. And she had found him, looking exactly like the person Guy defined. Well, good afternoon. He spoke. My name is Rimuru, and I am the leader of this town. I am impressed that you recognized this person as the strongest presence here. He. That's kid stuff for someone like me. My Dragon's Eye can measure all the magical energy people try to hide from me. But I would like to ask you one question. Yay, go ahead, ask anything. He replied with a nonchalant expression. Do you know the Demon Lord Guy Crimson? And are you a true dragon? Yes, I do. In fact, I am a good friend of his, and yes, I am a Touré dragon, your father's twin brother, my dear niece. He said as a warm smile appeared on his face. It was a real smile, not the fake ones she sees on the others. Milam, who grew up without even knowing how her parents even looked, always felt as if something inside her was incomplete while growing up. That feeling was made even more clear when she lost her one and only friend and pet dragon. But now, after meeting this person and seeing that smile, that warm smile of his, that feeling of emptiness disappeared, as it was the first time ever that anyone had ever called her family. That simple word was enough to make her break down into tears, tears of happiness. Rimuru, POV. This is bad. This is really bad. Really bad. After I welcomed Milam, she just started crying, and I am trying my hardest to calm her down. Why did she even start crying in the first place? Less than master, you may have been the first person ever to call her a part of a family greater than. Oh. But I still need to calm her down. Less than. Greater than. After a few minutes of trying to calm her down, I just decided to give her honey that I received from a pedo a few hours ago. What is this? I've never eaten anything so delicious in my life. Her mood did a complete 180. I had a fair bit of inventory left, so I put a generous supply of honey into a jar and handed it to her. It wasn't a fancy jar, misshapen and handmade from clay, but Milam still accepted it with a smile, scooping a bit up and sucking at it with gusto. At least Diablo stopped the others from coming here for my help, or that could have made things much worse. Holding the jar of honey drops carefully, Milam stuck right to my side in lockstep. Does she want more honey? I had a supply, but no intention of letting her have more of it. I didn't want my portion to run away on me. Hey, she asked, sidling up to me as we walked. Hey, have you ever thought about calling yourself a demon lord? I mean, you are partly a true dragon, but you aren't completely a true dragon, so you can still be called a demon lord? What on earth is she going on about? And why would I even want to become one? She gave me a genuinely perplexed look in response. Huh? I mean, we're talking about a demon lord. Here, they're really cool, you know? You kinda want to look up to them, right? Why should I even look up to the demon lords, as dragons are much more cooler anyways? You are not even a dragon completely, she said with a completely deadpan expression. Let's not talk about the small details. Anyways, guy has been bugging me to declare myself as a demon lord for quite some time now, and now even you are saying me to become one. I might just declare myself a demon lord after my town properly develops into a nice city. MMMMHH. That's really good. Well, anyways, how do you get your fun in life? Oh, all kinds of things. There's practically too much for me to do, if anything. I only just got my hands on that honey a little bit ago. There's lots of other stuff I also want to do. Wait, why you're doing stuff that's more fun than being a demon lord? That's not fair. It's totally not fair. Now I'm angry. Tell me what it is. And let me join you, too. You first have to learn some manners if you want to join me. Fine. All right. Let's do this. I'll call you Milam, and you can just call me Rimuru. Sound good? MMMMHH. Well, okay. I got it. Okay. Well, I'll give you a tour of the city, but no wandering around by yourself, okay? Okay. Rimuru. He. Great. There's a good girl. And no starting fights in town without my permission, either. Promise me. Of course. I promise. As we were walking having our conversation, Milam asked me one more question which completely stopped me in my track. Hey, were you behind the disappearance of the storm dragon Veldora? That single question almost gave me an heart attack, even though I don't have a heart. After thinking about this for a few seconds, I decided to tell her the truth. Sigh. Yes, I am, and he's not dead if you were wondering. Wahaha. I knew it. Someone as strong as you must have to do something with the early disappearance of Veldora. Yay, he is probably reading manga in my storage space or playing shogi with Ifrit, who's also trapped in my storage space. Okay. Who's Ifrit? Is he a spirit or something? How did you even know about that? But yay, he's a flame spirit. At the town's entrance, Rimuru-sama, nearly half the town was there waiting for me. Rimuru-sama, we sensed a huge magical force heading this way a few minutes ago. Good to see that you were completely safe, Sir Rimuru. Anyways, who is this girl with you, Sir Rimuru? These were the questions that started flooding as soon as I reached them. Jeez. You don't need to worry, guys. That huge magical force that you sensed was coming from this person, and you might know her by the name of the Demon Lord Milam Nava, and she is one of my relative. My answer was met with complete silence until Diablo came forward and said, It's an honor meeting you, Milam-sama, after which all of them stated cheering, some even started to cry tears of happiness. Some people even said things like, What? Lady Milam, the Demon Lord? Well done, Sir Rimuru. We should expect no less of Sir Rimuru. My stars, I've never seen her royal countenance in person before. Man, Milam is really popular. Anyways, I don't have to make another announcement because almost half of the town is gathered in this place. So just to make sure we're clear, starting today. Well, Milam's one of us. If she runs into any problems, I want you all to help her out. Yes. Rimuru is my uncle, so if something comes up, I'm your girl. The cheers became even louder for some reason. A few minutes later, Gabiru was nearly killed by Milam for calling her a child. And later that night, all her responsibilities were dumped onto me. The next day, after taking care of Milam, I headed for the sealed cave with Kaijin coming along. Were you all right after yesterday? I asked Gabble, who was waiting for me. He seemed fine to me, but a cheap shot from a demon lord could lead to all kinds of after effects. No problem at all, sir. I am supremely confident in my body's durability. He certainly acted like always. I breathed a sigh of relief as Vester gingerly came up to me. By the way, Sir Rimuru, I did file the report with King Gazel as well. I hope it was all right. A report about Milam was what he meant. I asked him to send one off yesterday. Of course, I said to leave the part of her being my niece. That could lead to some unnecessary trouble. Not a problem. Did the communication crystal work all right? It did, yes. It connected me to King Gazel almost immediately. All I said to him was that the demon lord Milam attacked and that you handled it, Sir Rimuru, but was that good enough? Yay, well, we talked it over last night, and it was decided that I'd be taking care of Milam. Because of that, if they have any bright ideas, I'd love to hear them. Yes, I am sure. The demon lord Milam is a class beyond all the others, as I understand. Quite, Gabble added. The strongest in the world, as far as I am aware. And I am her uncle and I am stronger than her. At this revelation they both looked shell-shocked. I mean, Milam is a walking natural disaster, and I said that I am her uncle and am stronger than her. If this news got out, it would very much create unwanted trouble. But there was no point in worrying all day. I had time to think about demon lord politics later. For now, I wanted to ask about healing potion. And they indeed delivered at making a full potion. So after some discussion we decided to sell the diluted version of this, calling them the low potion. Less than Master Milam has attacked Phobio, greater than, not again. Well, no point dwelling on the past. The future was more important. So what are you all here for? I said to the now awake Phobio. HMPH, and I have to reply to you, Loli would be magic born? Benimaru, Diablo and Shion immediately glared at him. I motioned them to stay cool, and they reluctantly stayed there, watching things unfold. Call me Loli if you want, but I'm definitely very much stronger than you. Also, I'd advise you to just give me some answers. I don't know this Carolon guy much, but depending on how you act around me, maybe he's gonna have to answer to us before long, okay? Think you're ready to make enemies with the entire forest of Jura? Huh. Well, look at you. The most self-important slime in the world, eh? And this entire town carries out the orders of such a base creature? What a bunch of wimps you must have here. And just because Lady Milam likes you a little, don't let that get to your head, boy. He seriously doesn't know how to sense danger, does he? A base creature? Milam, done with her sandwich, raised her voice again. You think you can pick on my uncle like that? Hang on, Milam. If you do anything else, I'm seriously taking dinner away from you, okay? Oh, okay. I'll be good, I promise. Well, first off, you're wrong. I am a slime completely and I rule over 30% of this forest, and if you're rarin' for war, then I'm willing to accept that. So I'd advise being careful in how you respond to me. The answers came surprisingly more readily than I thought. The pouting, sullen answers could be summed up as follows. The demon lord Carolon had ordered him to try to scout either the orc lord or the mystery magic born that fought him, whichever had survived. The magic born referred to us. Getting back to the subject, whoever won the fight between the orc lord and his foe was likely going to be an incredibly strong foe. So Carolon sent the black leopard fang Phobio, a sub-demon lord in his own right, to check it out. Carolon had a good eye for that kind of thing, apparently, but Phobio was just too much of a moron for the job. Carolon. Breaking our promise not to get in each other's way. Milam was stewing next to me. Milam's presence meant that Phobio had no power here, so he glared at the two of us, barked out, "You will regret this," and left, or more like ran away. Sigh. Man, now I have to deal with Charybdis again. Fuse. POV. Around the time when Rimuru first encountered Benimaru and his clan, back when they were still merely ogres, Fuse was sighing as loudly as he could at the three adventurers in front of him. He had sent this trio to figure out what was happening in the forest of Jura, and the moment they got back, they began telling him the most astounding of tall tales. They were Kabul, Ellen, and Guido, three talented guild members, all worthy of Fuse's trust. Their ranks were all B, and Fuse knew they were more than up to the challenge that letter came with. The first story they had for him was about their final moments with Shizu Izawa, a woman Fuse, as well, felt he owed his life to. And that's how she summoned Ifrit, only to get swallowed up by the raging beast. She probably traveled out of town because she knew that would happen. I think she realized she didn't have much time left. You said it. And who knows if she ever recovered. My guess is that she would have been a lot happier with just lying down and dying in her sleep. After the expedition was over, Shizu said she intended to travel to the Demon Lord's territory. She had some unfinished business there, apparently, and she insisted upon attending to it. Fuse knew there was no convincing her otherwise. So he decided to help her from behind the scenes, pairing her with 3 adventurers he planned to send into the forest. A pity, then, that they weren't with her to the very end. Fuse had no right to criticize them for that. Their mission came first, and Fuse himself had kept her true nature a secret from them. But did they really have to leave her under the care of monsters? He had no right to criticize them, but it still left a bad taste in his mouth. Plus, there was so much of their story that he just couldn't accept. Shizu was one thing, but their briefing was entirely based on monsters building a town for themselves. A single slime was at the top of the food chain, gathering hobgoblins to construct this town, a full-on, sturdily made municipality, just like any human settlement. This trio was talking about a bunch of monsters clearing land in the forest, chopping down trees, and using the wood to build homes. They even divided the town into distinct zones, crafting intricate plans about what would be built where. The more Fuse heard about it, the more it sounded like a real, full-on town. But it was hard to accept monsters pulling a trick like that. And that slime made him wonder. This creature, apparently named Rimuru, didn't seem like your typical named monster. In fact, all the monsters in this town were named, a situation that turned common sense on its ear. All this apparently happened after this Rimuru monster appeared. It was too shocking a tale to ignore. So after these monsters rescued you, this is the town you were taken to? Right. And we're talking, several hundred C+ rank monsters living together? There was really nothing we could have done. I thought I was a goner for sure. And then, they fed us actual cooked meat. Shocking though their tale was, however, these 3 buffoons were making it sound like a nice campout in the woods. And after that, Shizu went out of control and Rimuru defeated the magic born she transformed into. It was all simply beyond belief. Ifrit was a special A-grade spirit. If something like that went rogue and started attacking, it'd be a calamity-class danger. A nation the size of Bloomend would face a truly existential crisis. And a slime, the lowest class of monster, defeated this? While making it look like a child's play? Fuse wanted to shout at them to quit joking, but they all acted dead serious in their report. Between that, the dwarven artisans in town, and the healing potion that took care of even near-lethal injuries, he honestly began to wonder if they had dreamed it all. He suspected some form of illusory magic, but that was doubtful. Not as long as Ellen was there. Magicians like her had high magical resistance, and anyone who could overcome that with their illusions was a special grade in themselves. Plus, the equipment the trio had on was some seriously compelling physical evidence. They had boasted about it to Fuse to no end, but clearly it was of quality make and superior performance. A first-class set. They even possessed an item or two forged by Garm, that most famous of dwarven craftsmen. Fuse could tell they weren't fakes. It was ridiculous, but he had to accept it as the truth. He had to, but the report left him at a loss. How should he even judge this news? We had best send someone else to investigate, he decided after a week's worth of pained deliberation. By Cabal's description, his team never felt in danger inside this monster town. They had come home with gifts of equipment and healing potion, so that evaluation made sense. That, and after examining all this equipment, they found no curses applied to it and also potion of a better quality than almost anything the local guild had seen. This town of Rimuru's was orderly, populated by monsters that followed the slime's orders. What's more, although Fuse couldn't guess at the motive, the slime expressed a desire to visit their own city sometime. Cobble and his friends said he was welcome, and should it ever happen, Fuse had already asked the trio to arrange things with him. To him, the idea of letting some unknown monster venture into the kingdom of Bloomend was outrageous. But defying the will of a monster powerful enough to defeat Ifrit solo would be just as foolish. Fuse found himself plagued with self-doubt. If I let such a monster into town, I could easily be prosecuted for subversion against the state. No matter what it took, even if it meant providing his own funds for the job, he really had to investigate this in more detail. Just as Fuse was fretting over who to select for this new expedition, Cobble and his cohorts came running over with a new problem. He could hear Cobble calling for him in the guild building now. Meeting him without an appointment normally wasn't allowed, but the panicked tone of his shouting gave Fuse pause. "What is it this time? Is it something to do with that one?" he asked inside his secret reception room, pointing out a hooded figure among them. "We got trouble, Fuse. This guy said there's an orc lord out there." An orc lord. Fuse almost spit his tea out. First Veldora blinking out of existence. Then this mystery slime. And now this orc lord. Fuse suspected it might all be connected, and the thought was draining. I'm sorry, but could I ask you who you are? Fuse queried, recomposing himself. The hooded figure immediately removed his cloak, as if waiting for his cue. Sorry about that. My name's Gobta, and I work under my captain, Gobta. I came here to tell Cobble over there about the Orc Lord, upon the request of my leader, Sir Rimuru. Then he put his hood back on and sat down again. Fuse knew what he saw. That was a monster. A hobgoblin. He might resemble a human from far away, but the green twinge to his skin was unmistakable. And a named monster, no less. Cobble was telling the truth. This last bit of evidence finally convinced Fuse to believe fully in him. This Orc Lord report must have been the unvarnished truth as well, then. My name is Fuse. I serve as guild master for the Free Guild here in Bloomond. Gobta, do you mind if I ask you a question? What's that, sir? This Sir Rimuru, your master. Why did he want us to know about this? Ooh, the rank and file like me don't get told those kinds of things. I see. If you ask me, I'd say the Orc Lord's well and truly dead already, but so be it. I wanted to go in with Gobta, too, but Sir Rimuru commanded me personally to travel here instead. Gobta must have been fairly peeved about that, if he volunteered that information without being asked. He practically grumbled the last few words out. But Fuse was too thrown by the revelation to pay his tone of voice much mind. What? The slime. Defeating an Orc Lord? Are you kidding? Wait. Is this slime treating us as insurance? Is that how far ahead he's planned his moves? A monster? That's ridiculous. You ask me, though, Cobble volunteered, that Orc Lord's gonna be no match for Rimuru. Oh, you said it, he took out Ifrit all by himself. Even if you let the Orc Lord mature, it's just not enough of a threat for him. Between the trio and Gobta, nobody in the room seemed to doubt Rimuru's ultimate victory. That was. Well, whatever. The problem was, what was Rimuru thinking at the moment? His distinctly unmonster-like activities stood out in Fuse's mind. Building a town, leading great crowds of monsters, and yet apparently seeking a cooperative relationship with mankind. Was Rimuru the slime some kind of special creature? He seemed so to Fuse. All right. Thank you for relaying the message. Understood, sir. I'll be off, then. Before anyone could stop him, Gobta was off his seat and out of the room, a dignified and very unmonster-like exit. I'm not sure I can deal with this guy by myself. Better talk to my friend first. The image of his good friend, the Baron of Vriard, popped into his mind. This was now a national issue, and Fuse was prepared to tackle it. The expedition he was picturing in his mind would soon be greatly expanded, to the point where it would become a 3-month investigation. 3 months later, he had his reports. Fuse was there, at the usual spot, having a secret meeting with Baron of Vriard. So this is the report from your investigation? Based on the evidence from their march, the force numbered several 100,000. That suggests beyond a doubt that it was an Orc Lord, doesn't it? Indeed, Baron. You would never believe how hard it was to ask the king for permission to deploy his intelligence department. They certainly came through for us, though. Ha ha ha, yes, I heard. It seems they have a chair all ready for you in that department, no? I imagine your father would like to hand his position as supervisor over to you sooner rather than later. Don't remind me. I have enough on my plate dealing with guild master duties here in town. True enough. But that's a discussion for another time. This is some extremely valuable information, a town of monsters, and a slime living there that can overcome an Orc Lord by force. An Orc Lord who may have led an army of up to 200,000, no less. And scariest of all those surviving orcs simply settled across the land instead of rioting and running roughshod over it. Is it all really true? I mean, I know it is, but I cannot believe any of it. Fuse could understand the Baron's feelings all too well. He felt the same way. No adventurer in the world could slay an Orc Lord with an army in the 6 figures supporting it. Even if they managed some kind of stealth mission to assassinate this nemesis, and even if it worked, that army would go nuts and raze all the nearby villages. There'd be no way to counter that. The national army would be a drop in the bucket. and the night core of some tinier kingdom would just be swallowed by the stampeding horde. You're right. It's simply unbelievable. Would monsters take such an intelligent, considered approach to this? And how did they convince that massive army not to riot in the first place? Did they actually manage to feed that many orcs? They must have. It's impossible to accept, but we have to. That slime, Rimuru. I think he's saved all of us. Yes. Indeed. So we have a town of monsters about a 2-week journey from Bloomend. That much, we've confirmed. They said it was an astonishing example of functional beauty, but they only had the chance to view it from afar. They've clearly been at work on a wide swath of land around the town, but all of it was still covered under a tight network of patrols. Even our own agents suggested that infiltration would be difficult at best. Doesn't that tell you a lot about the intelligence level of this town's monsters? And the real question is, how should we handle our own relationship with them? Should we approach this slime as a benevolent presence or as a potential threat to try to eliminate? Wait. You speak of eliminating him like it would be simple, but is such a thing even possible? Baron Veryard didn't raise an eyebrow. To him, as much as it was to Fuse, that was already a given. They had both concluded that Bloomend had no chance of victory alone, not unless the Western Holy Church was willing to expend paladins for the job. Each resident of that monster town was at least a C+ rank in themselves, as expected, since they were all named. Some were reportedly in our special territory. Their total war power couldn't even be measured right now. Are you volunteering for that, Fuse? Sure. I want to measure this Rimuru guy with my own eyes. Veryard gave him an approving nod. Hostilities weren't anyone's first choice, but this was no potential challenger that could be left ignored any longer. Fuse felt the need to judge for himself. Relying on someone else to make that call wouldn't work. That was the best choice, and a choice he could only make because the Baron respected him so much. Plus, yesterday's events made Fuse believe all the more that visiting this slime directly was the best solution. He had asked Cabal's group to guide him to the monster's town on that same day. While they spoke, they were all approached by another stranger with a message. You are Cabal, right? The man asked. I am here to relay a message from Sir Rimuru. The Orc Lord issue has been resolved. Sorry I forgot to tell you guys, that is all. Nobody in the group was more surprised by this sudden intrusion than Fuse. They were all seated in a space inside the Free Guild, a room that took every measure possible against people sneaking in. If this stranger was invited in, that was one thing, but it would have taken unbelievable skill to make one's own way inside. Wait. Who are you? The blue-haired intruder turned his cold eyes toward Fuse. I am called Soe. Sir Rimuru has appointed me his covert agent. He gave the reply softly and steadily, completely unfazed by the coercion from Fuse, an A- fighter himself. Fuse may have felt overwhelmed by this all-powerful presence before him, but he still had the kingdom's intelligence force at his fingertips, and he knew how to use those skills of his. So he decided to gather as much information as he could from Soe. Rimuru, the leader of the monster town. Why are a bunch of monsters worried about us? Hey, haven't your friends already told you? Sir Rimuru is exploring ways to live in peace and prosperity with the human race. I am unsure why you are so wary of us, but I would suggest that selecting reconciliation over rejection would be the smarter decision. Not even Fuse could hide his surprise at the statement. It meant that his attempts at intelligence gathering were completely exposed. Hoo boy. If this is the level of monster Rimuru has recruited, I simply must meet him soon. He could tell that Soe was a monster. Even without the horn on his forehead, the aura was as clear as day. He had no intention of hiding it, but it emitted only a slight amount of magicules. It didn't suggest this creature was anything special, but Fuse's sixth sense was still ringing alarm bells. He decided to trust in it. I see. So you're on to the fact that we've been investigating you. Well, before that, there's something I'd like to ask. How did a magic born of your level infiltrate this town? Because I believe we're protected by a barrier that blocks out all monsters ranked or higher. A high-level magic born like you shouldn't be anywhere near here. Ah yes. I did notice the presence of that barrier, but that's what it was meant for, then. Perhaps Sir Rimuru or Lady Shuna could have identified it as such, but I wasn't able to see quite so much. Thank you for telling me. In exchange, I will answer your question. This body is generated by my replication skill, and thus retains only 1/10 of my magical energy. In your ranking system, I imagine it would only manage a A- or so. Do you see what I mean? This kingdom truly does have a splendid defense network, but if it is willing to let low-level monsters slide that easily, I can see it still has its holes. Fuse listened slack-jawed at Soei's explanation, feeling the cold eyes on him. It sounded true enough to him, and his point was totally valid. With all the effort they expended dealing with hazard class A ranks, they had overlooked some of the most basic threats, and it was a monster, a potential target of this system, who had pointed it out to him. A small wonder that it turned Fuse's world upside down. Well, if you will excuse me, wait, as Soei turned to go, Fuse shouted and stopped him. He had just enough time to explain to the monster that he wanted an audience with Rimuru, in the town that he ran. I will inform Sir Rimuru, in that case, he said, bringing it close to the day's events. This was why Fuse was making the journey. He laughed a bit at the position he was in, dragging the kingdom into this, then dragging himself into the kingdom's work all over again. Damn. I didn't intend to serve my kingdom doing this, but... He might have complained about it, but he liked life in Bloomond. He couldn't just abandon it and flee. So he hired Cabal's trio as his guides, and they quickly planned the journey to Rimuru, capital of the Jura Tempest Federation.